Before the world even knew what hit them, a confession was made that sent shockwaves through the very fabric of existence. It was a truth so profound, so earth-shattering, that it had been hidden for centuries, buried deep beneath layers of time, veiled in shadows, and kept from humanity's understanding. What if the very foundation of everything you thought you knew was about to be flipped upside down? Why did Lucifer, once the most radiant and exalted angel in heaven, fall so far? Could it be that something far darker than pride and power drove him to rebellion, something so twisted and unfathomable that it would forever change the destiny of the cosmos? In this moment, we uncover the untold truth. We reveal the deepest secrets of Lucifer's descent, the turning point when a being of pure light became the embodiment of darkness. Through this revelation, you will come to understand not just the fall of Lucifer, but the cosmic battle that continues to rage even today, shaping our lives and the spiritual forces around us. Are you ready to see the true nature of Lucifer before he became Satan? Prepare yourself for an eye-opening journey as we reveal the power that drove his rebellion and why this cosmic clash still echoes through the world today. As we delve deeper into this mystery, you will discover why his pride was not merely a personal flaw, but the spark that ignited a war in heaven, a war that continues to impact every soul on earth. This is not just a story of ancient rebellion, but a warning for all of us. The choices we make, the battles we fight within, echo the very struggles Lucifer once faced. So stay with us, watch closely. The secrets that have been locked away for millennia are about to be revealed. This is your chance to uncover the truth. And as you do, think about the path you're walking. Are you walking in the light, or have you unknowingly embraced the shadows? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts on this timeless battle between light and darkness. The heaven that once was before the chaos, before the fall, there existed a heaven so radiant it could scarcely be understood. Imagine a place where light poured like liquid gold, a realm of pure harmony, untouched by fear or pain. Every angel, every being, moved in perfect rhythm with the Creator's will, their hearts synchronized in divine worship, their minds set upon only the good, the true, the beautiful. There was no darkness here. No shadow could claim a space in the perfect expanse. The music of the spheres, of seraphim and cherubim, echoed with unearthly purity, and in their songs, the very essence of life itself danced in divine praise. Lucifer, the most glorious among them, stood at the center. His form, shining with unimaginable beauty, was the pinnacle of creation. He was more than just an angel, he was a beacon, an epitome of perfection. His role was not only to worship, but to lead, to be the light-bearer, the guiding star for all the heavenly hosts. His mind, filled with wisdom, his heart, ablaze with love for the Creator. He was the most perfect reflection of what heaven was intended to be. And yet it was here, in the purity of light, that the seed of darkness first began to take root. For what happens when perfection no longer feels enough? What happens when a soul, even one as radiant as Lucifer's, begins to feel entitled to more? The fall, the shift, the choice. Lucifer was not a mere servant, bound to the will of another. He was a being of immense power, and with that power came the gift of choice, a gift given to all who were made in the Creator's image, free will. The Creator, in his infinite wisdom, did not want blind worship. He wanted love. True, undivided, and free. But with this gift, the potential for rebellion was birthed, and in Lucifer, that potential began to germinate. It was subtle at first, a whisper, a thought. The idea that perhaps he deserved more than his current role, more than the beauty surrounding him. And so, Lucifer began to question. He began to see his own brilliance as a source of his power. He began to believe that his wisdom, his beauty, and his strength were not a reflection of the Creator, but of himself alone. This is where the danger lies for all of us. When we lose sight of our source and begin to believe we are the source, we elevate ourselves, forgetting that it is in the humility of surrender to something greater that we find true power. This is the choice Lucifer made. Pride, the most dangerous of all temptations. He desired not just to lead, but to be worshipped. He saw the throne of God and desired it for himself. His ambition, once noble, became corrupted by the shadow of self. The more he longed for it, the more distant he grew from the very thing that made him who he was, the Creator's love. His pride swelled to a point of no return, and in that instant, the perfect harmony of heaven was shattered. It was no longer enough for Lucifer to lead. He wanted to be the center of it all, and in doing so, he tore the very fabric of heaven apart. The lie of power and freedom. We must now ask ourselves, what lies at the root of pride? Lucifer's fall was not just a tale of vanity or self-absorption. It was a story about the corrupting power of freedom, unanchored by love. Freedom, when not tempered by humility, becomes chaos. And this is the lie Lucifer fell prey to. The idea that freedom meant control, that power was his to seize, that he could create his own destiny apart from the Creator. But in reality, true freedom is not the ability to dominate, but the ability to surrender, to trust in something greater than ourselves. Lucifer's tragic error became a lesson for us all, that without love, power becomes destruction. Without humility, freedom becomes bondage. We often seek control over our lives, believing that in control we will find peace. But in reality, it is in surrendering to the divine plan, in acknowledging that there is a force greater than ourselves, that we find the true meaning of freedom. Lucifer's fall is a stark reminder of this eternal truth. Pride and the thirst for control never lead to peace. They only lead to emptiness. The rebellion that shattered heaven. As Lucifer's pride grew, so did his rebellion. He was no longer content with his exalted position in heaven. He wanted more. He rallied the angels who shared his vision of independence. They too saw themselves as equal to the Creator and longed to establish their own rule. It was a rebellion not just against God, but against the very nature of creation itself. They sought to overthrow the divine order and replace it with their own. This was the ultimate betrayal, one that would reverberate throughout eternity. The battle that ensued in heaven was unlike any the universe had ever seen. The forces of good, led by the archangel Michael, clashed with the legions of Lucifer. It was not just a war of strength, but a war of ideologies. One side fought for harmony, the other for chaos. One side sought unity with the Creator, the other sought to tear that bond asunder. And though Lucifer was mighty, his forces, though powerful, could not overcome the unwavering truth of God's love and light. And so, Lucifer and his followers were cast out of heaven, their beauty and glory stripped away, their light extinguished. What was once a being of supreme radiance was now the embodiment of darkness. The angel who once led the heavenly hosts in worship now became their adversary, their enemy. This is where the true tragedy lies, not just in Lucifer's fall, but in the fall of all who followed him. Their rebellion cost them everything, their place in heaven, their purity, their connection to the Creator. And in this fall, they created a chasm that would separate them from the light forever. The lesson we learn from Lucifer's descent is not merely about pride, but about the devastating consequences of disobedience and rebellion against the divine. His fall is a warning to us all about the dangers of elevating ourselves above God, about the consequences of choosing our will over the Creator's. In our own lives, we may not face a cosmic battle, but we face battles every day. The battle between our desires and the divine plan, the fight between pride and humility, the struggle for control versus surrender. And in each of these battles, we are faced with the same choice Lucifer faced. Will we choose the light of love and humility, or the darkness of pride and rebellion? In the end, the fall of Lucifer is not just a story of one angel's rebellion. It is a story that speaks to each of us. It is a reminder that in the pursuit of power, we must never lose sight of the love that gives us strength. And it is a call for us to reflect on our own choices, to seek the light, and to remember that true freedom is found not in control, but in surrender. The divine announcement and Lucifer's rebellion. In a moment of divine revelation, God made an announcement that would forever alter the course of history. He proclaimed his plan to create humankind in his image, to fashion beings from dust who would be made in his likeness, who would walk with him, worship him, and experience the depths of his love. It was a declaration that sent ripples through the very fabric of heaven. The angels who had existed in perfect harmony suddenly felt the weight of a new reality, an existence where beings lesser than themselves would walk with the Creator. They were not prepared for this. They could not comprehend the Creator's love for these fragile, imperfect beings. But it was Lucifer, once the most radiant and beloved, who could not accept this revelation. How could the Creator choose to elevate these human beings above the angels? How could these creatures, who would falter and fail, be favored above those who had been his closest servants for eternity? The seeds of discontent began to grow within Lucifer's heart, and with each passing day, they festered into a poison that would not be contained. His anger, his jealousy, and his pride burned brighter than ever before. For Lucifer, the divine plan was not just a threat to his position, it was a direct assault on everything he believed about himself. He had been the bearer of light, the embodiment of wisdom and beauty, the highest of all angels. But now, he saw a future where his status would be nothing more than a memory, a forgotten relic in the wake of the Creator's new creation. It was in this moment that Lucifer's heart hardened. He could no longer bend his will to the Creator's vision. He sought to rise above it, to forge a new path, a path where he would no longer be subservient to the will of God. This rebellion was not just a matter of personal pride, it was a betrayal of divine order itself. Lucifer sought to challenge the very sovereignty of God, to overthrow the throne of the Almighty and set himself upon it. His mind was consumed with the idea of becoming the center of all worship, the ruler of all creation. The Creator, who had given him freedom and beauty, became the target of his unyielding desire for power. The war in heaven. As Lucifer's rebellion gained momentum, he did not stand alone. He was joined by a legion of angels who shared his vision, angels who had once been as faithful and loyal as the rest. But Lucifer's charisma, his brilliance, and his promises of power were too much for them to resist. They followed him, casting aside their faith in the Creator for the chance to rule alongside him. And so, a great war broke out in heaven, a war unlike any other, for it was not just a war of armies, but a war of hearts, minds, and souls. The angels loyal to the Creator, led by the Archangel Michael, fought valiantly to protect the heavenly realms. The battle was fierce, a cosmic struggle between good and evil, light and darkness. The very fabric of the universe seemed to tremble as Lucifer's forces clashed with those of the Creator. The battle was not just for the throne of heaven, it was a fight for the very soul of creation. Lucifer, with all his strength, could not defeat the Creator. His power, though immense, was no match for the love and unity that bound the Creator's forces together. And so, after a time of relentless fighting, Lucifer and his rebellious followers were cast down from heaven. Their light, their beauty, their glory, once unmatched, were stripped away. They were cast into the depths, far removed from the Creator's presence, where their beauty turned to ashes and their radiance dimmed to darkness. In an instant, Lucifer went from being the brightest star in heaven to becoming the embodiment of despair and ruin. The fall of Lucifer, from light to darkness. Lucifer's fall was not just a loss of position, it was the loss of everything he had ever known. Once the most beautiful and exalted of all beings, he was now an outcast, condemned to eternal darkness. He had once been the light-bearer, but now he was consumed by the very darkness he had sought to control. He had lost his purity, his wisdom, his brilliance. All that remained was a twisted mockery of what he once was. And with this transformation came the birth of Satan, the adversary, the accuser, the one who would seek to destroy everything the Creator had made. This was the ultimate tragedy. Lucifer, the angel of light, had become Satan, the prince of darkness. The fall from heaven was not just a fall from grace, it was a fall into destruction, into eternal separation from the Creator. Lucifer's pride had led him to this place, and it was his pride that would bind him to it for all eternity. There would be no redemption for him, no second chance. He had chosen his path, and in doing so, he had sealed his fate. But the story of Lucifer's fall is not just a story of one being's destruction. It is a warning for all of us. How often do we, like Lucifer, elevate ourselves above the Creator? How often do we seek to take control, to place our will above God's? The fall of Lucifer teaches us that pride, when left unchecked, leads not to greatness but to ruin. It teaches us that when we seek to be our own God, we are destined to fall. Lucifer's fall is a reflection of the dangers of self-reliance, of the temptation to place ourselves at the center of the universe. It is a reminder that true greatness lies not in power or control, but in humility and surrender. For when we surrender our will to God, we align ourselves with the divine plan, and in doing so, we find the peace and fulfillment that Lucifer could never attain. Lucifer's transformation from the light-bringer to the dark accuser serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of pride, the fragility of our choices, and the eternal consequences that come with rejecting the Creator's love. His fall is a tragic tale, but it is one that holds within it a valuable lesson for all who would listen. Pride goes before a fall, and only in humility can we find true redemption. Let his story be a cautionary tale for us all, a reminder that no matter how bright our light may shine, it is nothing compared to the glory of the Creator. Let us walk in the light, and never seek to elevate ourselves above the one who gives us life. For in the end, the path of pride is a path that leads only to darkness, while the path of humility leads us back to the source of all light. Satan's temptation in the Garden of Eden. In the lush, pristine Garden of Eden, where every living thing was in perfect harmony, the serpent slithered, whispering lies into the ears of the first humans. There, in the presence of unblemished beauty, innocence, and the full glory of God's creation, Satan began his mission, a mission rooted in deceit and destruction. His plan was not just to cause Adam and Eve to sin, but to sever the bond between humanity and their Creator. It was not an open attack, but a subtle, enticing suggestion that planted seeds of doubt in their minds. Did God really say? These words, like venom, slithered into their hearts, challenging the very essence of their trust in the Creator. Satan, the master of manipulation, knew exactly where to strike. He didn't come with threats or force. Instead, he whispered with all the sweetness of a lie disguised as truth. He preyed on their curiosity, their desire to be more than what God had ordained, more than what they were meant to be. The fall did not happen in a moment of rage or violence, but in the soft voice of temptation that promised power, wisdom, and freedom, yet led them straight into bondage. Eve, enticed by the serpent's words, reached for the forbidden fruit, and in that single act, the course of humanity was irrevocably altered. But what was the true temptation? Was it merely the fruit? No. The real temptation was the lie that whispered, "You can be like God." Satan knew that the deepest desire of the human heart is to be free, to make choices, to rise above. And so he fed that desire, playing on the one thing that would fracture the relationship between God and man: pride. The desire for self-sufficiency, to step into the seat of authority, was what led humanity down the road of ruin. The very thing that promised life and wisdom brought nothing but death and separation from the divine. From the beginning, Satan's strategy was clear. He wanted to redefine humanity's relationship with God. His goal was to make humans believe that they could be gods unto themselves, that they could walk apart from the divine will and be just as powerful, just as wise. The tragedy of this temptation is not just the physical fall. It is the spiritual fracture that has echoed through every generation. Every time we are faced with choices that pit our will against God's, we are walking in the footsteps of Adam and Eve, listening to the same old lie: "You can be like God." It's a lie that still haunts us, whispered in every corner of our world today. The fall was not just an isolated event in Eden. It was the inception of a spiritual war that continues to this very day. The serpent, the tempter, sought to bring about humanity's downfall, and through his whispers, he succeeded. Satan still uses the same methods, sowing seeds of doubt, feeding our pride, and enticing us with the false promise of freedom. But what we fail to see, like Adam and Eve, is that true freedom comes not from rebellion, but from surrender to the Creator's will. The battle in the garden was the first of many battles between light and darkness, good and evil, trust and rebellion. And every time we choose to follow our own will rather than the divine path, we are allowing Satan's lies to take root in our hearts. The redemption of humankind. The divine plan. In the face of Lucifer's rebellion, in the wake of humanity's fall into sin, a plan was set into motion that would change everything. The Creator, whose heart was broken by the betrayal of his beloved angels and the disobedience of his creation, would not allow his masterpiece to be lost forever. There, in the very midst of darkness, God began the work of redemption. The first promise of this redemption was whispered through the curses of Eden, in a divine prophecy that would echo throughout history. God spoke of a seed, one that would come from the woman who would crush the serpent's head. This was no mere hope. It was a declaration that the battle was not over. The Creator, who had been betrayed, would now work to restore what had been lost. The promise of redemption was not a plan concocted in haste. It was a plan that had been in motion from the very beginning. The divine plan of salvation would unfold in unexpected ways, ways that would confound the wisdom of the world. As time moved forward, the promise grew clearer. The Creator himself would step into his creation, taking on flesh and blood, to live among his people, to teach them the truth, and ultimately to die for them. The fall that had once seemed final would now be undone by the sacrificial love of God. Jesus Christ, the Lamb who was slain before the foundation of the world, would be the answer to the question of humanity's redemption. His sacrifice on the cross would bridge the chasm that sin had created, offering salvation to all who would believe. But redemption does not end at the cross. It is found in the resurrection, the ultimate victory over Satan and sin. Jesus rose from the dead, conquering not only physical death, but the spiritual death that had plagued humanity since the fall. In his resurrection, he demonstrated that the darkness of sin and death could not hold humanity captive forever. The light of Christ shattered the chains that had bound us, offering not just forgiveness, but new life. The resurrection is the turning point of history. It is the moment when the power of Satan was definitively broken. It is the moment when the promise of Genesis 3:15 came to fruition, when the serpent's head was crushed under the feet of Christ. But this victory is not just for a distant time. It is a victory that is accessible to all who call on the name of Jesus. In his resurrection, we too are resurrected. In his victory, we find our own victory over the sin and death that once held us captive. This is the ultimate message of hope, that no matter how far we have fallen, no matter how deeply we have been ensnared by the lies of the enemy, redemption is available. The divine plan was set in motion not just for the angels or for the people of Israel, but for all of humanity. The sacrifice of Jesus is the greatest act of love ever shown, and it is an invitation to all who would accept it. In the shadow of Satan's lies, the light of God's love shines even brighter, offering healing, redemption, and the hope of eternal life. In every moment, we are faced with a choice: to walk in the freedom offered by Christ, or to continue down the path that Satan once walked. But let us remember, true freedom is not found in rebellion or in our own power, but in the surrender of our will to the one who holds the keys to life. Let this story of redemption be the foundation of your hope, the source of your strength, and the reminder that no matter how great the darkness, the light of Christ is greater still. As the light of the world flickers within us, we come to a realization. No matter how far we've wandered, how deep the darkness seems, we are never beyond the reach of divine grace. We, like the lost sheep, have all at some point strayed from the path, caught in the snares of temptation, bound by chains we cannot see. But these chains are not unbreakable. The light of Christ, brighter than any darkness that seeks to consume us, is always there, waiting to lead us back. It is the light that calls to the deepest part of our souls, a beacon of hope that can never be extinguished. Do you feel it? That stirring within your heart? That quiet whisper that tells you there is more to life than the struggles you face? That voice calling you into the light, into freedom, into healing? It is the voice of the Creator, always present, never far, waiting for you to turn toward it. In the deepest pain, in the darkest moments, there is a peace that transcends everything you have ever known. It is a peace that heals, a peace that restores, a peace that invites you to leave behind the burden of your past and walk into the future with your head held high. Let the weight of the world fall from your shoulders and let your spirit rise. In this moment, you have the opportunity to choose freedom, to choose to walk in the light. To choose to break free from the lies that have kept you chained, the lies that say you are not worthy, that you are too far gone. Those are the whispers of the enemy, the lies that seek to keep you in darkness. But you are not defined by your past mistakes. You are not defined by the struggles you have faced. You are defined by the love of the Creator, who calls you his own, who reaches for you even when you feel you have fallen too far. And here's the truth: you are never too far gone. No matter how deep the darkness seems, the light is greater. The love of Christ is greater. The love that was poured out on the cross, the love that defeated death itself, is available to you now, in this moment. You do not have to walk this path alone. The journey may be long, the road may be difficult, but the light is with you every step of the way, guiding you, healing you, calling you to something more. If you feel this message has touched your heart, if you feel that you are being drawn into the light, I invite you to take a step forward. Support this channel with your energy, with your heart, with your willingness to believe in the possibility of something greater. Your support, no matter how small, helps us continue this journey together, to spread this message of hope, healing, and transformation to those who need it most. Every like, every comment, every share is a small act of light in a world that desperately needs it. In this moment, I ask you to reflect on your own journey. Are you walking in the light, or are you still bound by the darkness? What is holding you back? What chains need to be broken? Let this video be a reminder that you are not alone, that you are not defined by the darkness you face, but by the light you carry within you. I believe in you. I believe that you have the power to rise, to choose the light, to embrace the love that is freely offered to you, and I invite you to share this journey with others. Let them know that they too can find freedom, healing, and hope in the love of Christ. We are in this together, walking toward the light, every step bringing us closer to the truth, to the love, to the peace that surpasses all understanding. Thank you, from the deepest part of my heart, for being here, for taking this moment to reflect, to heal, and to embrace the love that is calling you home. Keep shining your light, and remember, no matter how dark the night may seem, the dawn is always coming. The light is always here, and it is yours to claim.